Welcome to Ascension with V, where we talk about spiritual awakening, ascension, and everything in between. I'm your host, Stashia Jeanette, aka V, and today we have a very special guest who's about to take us on a journey with her unique gifts and experiences. Rajen, please tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and what your ascension process has been like, and all the things.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I love it.
Yes.
Ooh, I feel like that's such a loaded question.
Right. All the things.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
So yes, my name is Rajan and okay. My background is in holistic nutrition. That is where I started.
Okay.
You know, that's a whole nother, we could do a whole podcast on how I got into that too, but that's kind of where my journey back to myself started.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll give the background and then that will kind of lead into what I do now. Let's do
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, listen, we have an hour. If you have the hour time,
Oh
cool.
yeah, we're
Like
good.
tell
We're
me
good.
tell me all the things.
Beautiful. Okay. So I've had my own health issues, which is what led me into nutrition. That's usually how, yeah, you too, right? It's usually how these things go. We usually have to take our health or
Absolutely.
take our whatever into our own hands because we weren't getting it externally.
Yeah.
So that's how I started in holistic nutrition, went to school for that. And that's kind of when, like, I did not grow up in a religious home, in a spiritual home, nothing. I don't even think we would call ourselves atheist, but there was just nothing, none of that. Right.
None
So
of
it
it. Yep.
wasn't part of who I was. And when I started my holistic nutrition journey, the school that I went to, because it was very like holistic based, I started to learn about a lot of the stuff that was going on in the food industry and the medical industry, just started getting exposed to that, and it was blowing my mind.
Really.
Right. And so not only was I able to take my health into my own hands and see massive results in doing that by doing things against the mainstream, against what I've been taught, against like all the medication that I had been put on my whole life, all these things, right? So like that in itself started to just quote unquote wake me up, but then also what I was learning about the industries and the systems that I had been in my whole life and how most of that was all just
BS.
BS, yes. That was kind of when, and I didn't even know it at the time, but that's kind of when I started to like my awakening journey. And
I
that
love
was,
that.
yeah, I was just gonna say that was what are we at? 2024. I was over a decade ago, over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So without any like prior exposure to this stuff, that was kind of just like thrown into it. And I started getting really, really passionate about all of that realm. And so, that's when I started my own business in nutrition. And, over the years, it's been so many different things. I've dipped my toes in all the different kinds of things around
Yeah.
holistic health and nutrition. And, I just started learning more and more about the food industry and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of how I started waking up to what was really, really going on in the world. And then fast forward, I absolutely still love holistic nutrition and so grateful for that path. And I worked some amazing jobs and had some really cool things in my business. And then when COVID happened, I was in what I would have originally when I got the job was my dream job. I was like the lead nutritionist for this multidisciplinary company. I worked from home even before COVID. It was like a totally remote job. Yeah, we worked with first responders. I had clients all the time. It was just such a wonderful experience. And like I said, it was my dream job at the time. And then COVID happened and, things started to slow down and that company started changing. And very much still, I was still what I would call asleep at that point. I was in a relationship that was also, I didn't know at the time, but now looking back, it was completely cutting me off from who I really was. And I think we often do this, right? And, I see now that it was in that relationship, but also my whole life, it was just this constant need to like fit in and be a certain way. And it was especially true in that relationship. I was doing things that I thought that I wanted to do, but really, I didn't want to do them. And so COVID just kind of like blew that up for me because at the beginning I was very much in that fear-based state, like a lot of people were.
Right.
Yeah. And, but then because of what I knew through going through holistic nutrition and those systems and all that kind of stuff, I started asking questions and I started getting curious and I started being like, something doesn't feel right about this. And then
Right.
things started really shifting and things started getting really crazy. And I started really asking some questions and started going down some rabbit holes. And then that's when my awakening really started. It was like it had been slowly building up into that point, and then it was just like catapulted into that. And I was just like, God, like this is terrifying, but also exciting at the same time. And
what were the rabbit holes that led you there, if I may ask?
oh my God, I just want to, there's so many rabbit holes. Like,
But do you have like one or two that were the standout ones where you were like, this is
mm-hmm.
this?
This is it. This is it. Yeah, I mean, that's what like the whole rabbit hole into the medical industry, like that's a big one. Rabbit holes like conspiracy theories, like I became really like got really down all those rabbit holes.
Like through the COVID thing?
Yeah, through the COVID thing, that was
Yeah,
kind of what catapulted me into
catapulted.
that. Totally.
Yeah, same. I'm like, I'm asking because same. I was like,
Like once again, that's a whole other conversation we could have, all the different
yes,
rabbit holes you can go down,
yes,
right?
yes.
But also just like how we're, in a spiritual war versus like,
That.
yes, that's the
Yes.
big one, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't grow up spiritual, so I had no idea what was even happening to me at that point. I just thought I was learning new information, but at the same time, I was like noticing these massive shifts in me, and I was like, it was scary because there was so much going on, and I felt like everything that I had come to know at that point was a lie. And of course, that's the dark night of the soul kind of vibes. And my partner at the time, total opposite. He thought I was crazy. He thought I was going crazy. And so not only was there like the isolation during COVID, but now I'm on this like other side where people are like, you're crazy and demonizing it. And the great divide that there always has been, but was very much present during COVID. And so my partner was part of that. We were divided in that as well. And so I got to a point where we realized that we were no longer a match for each other, totally. And so that then there was that going through a breakup during my spiritual awakening, which felt very isolating, but also even more so isolating because it was during COVID and on this side of it. And so I kind of then I started going down all the spiritual rabbit holes because that's what was resonating with me at the time. And I didn't realize that whole journey up until that point, I had been coming back to myself slowly and like very like subconsciously, and coming back to self-love and really accepting who I was. And now here was this big moment where I got to decide if I was going to choose myself or I was going to choose this old, fabricated version of me. And I chose myself. I decided to choose myself. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make because this partner that I was with, we didn't have a bad relationship. It was just, I wasn't myself in it, right? We were engaged to be married. We had just bought a house together. We owned it.
Snap.
A brand new vehicle together, like all these things. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is what I thought my life was going to be, planning on having kids. And I'm like, but I know on a soul level, like even if I knew nothing about soul levels at that point, I was like, this is not right for me anymore. And I have to choose what my intuition is telling me. Right. And so it was so hard. And it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. At the time, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But now looking back, best thing that ever happened to me because it just put me on this journey of self-discovery and spirituality and healing and self-love and discovering what my true passions and true gifts are. And this is where I am today. And so to come back to your original question of what I do is I have the last decade of experience with coaching people through nutrition and health and holistic wellness. And in that, what I realized is that it's never really about the food. That's just kind of the surface level stuff. It's really about our relationship that we have with ourselves, the trauma that we have, the conditioning that we have. And this is what shapes our relationship with food, with other people, with money, with whatever it is, right? And so during my nutrition coaching era, I also very much became like a life coach or a self-love coach or however you want to view that. And so that's what I became really good at and really passionate about. And so now, after diving down all these spiritual rabbit holes in the last few years, learning what worked for me, what didn't. I discovered breathwork in that time. I discovered human design in that time. And I'm a very passionate person. When I, find something that I love, I'm like, okay, let's go all into it.
Yeah. Ooh.
Totally. And that's even part of my human design too. I don't know how well versed you are in human design, but I have a line 1 in my profile, which is all about learning as much as I can about a specific subject and just learning all the things and then teaching it. And so it's very much who I am. And so I became a certified breathwork facilitator. I became a human design coach. I got, went down all of these things. And so this is where I find myself now. Is it's funny because I don't actually have like a succinct elevator pitch because I feel like there's so many different
That
things.
you do. Exactly. And you shouldn't.
So
I tell people frequently, I'm like, please don't limit yourself or box yourself or label yourself and just this, because very much like you ooze multi-dimensional, multi-level
mm-hmm.
being, and you feel like you are multiple things, and you're good at multiple things. So I think you're all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. But like the main things,
Yeah.
I work mostly with women and helping them through the lens of human design, but also just like coaching in general to come back to themselves, to learn how to actually love and accept themselves. Because I really truly feel that that is the foundation of living your dream life. Is like if you don't actually love yourself, it's not going to work.
Nothing works. Literally, I'm like, literally, from experience, literally nothing works. Nothing happens. It's all bad. Literally, it's terrible.
Yes. Yeah. So coming back to themselves, self-love, and of course, like using human design as a system or a framework in doing that, because it really does help you accept and learn more about yourself in that way too.
Okay.
So coming back to themselves through self-love and somatic practices too, to release that gunk, that so stuck emotions in the body, like breath work. And then, yeah, coaching, because I love coaching. I'm a projector. I am here to guide. I'm here to teach. That's that line 1 energy. If you're, once again, whoever's listening is familiar with human design. And so, yeah, bringing women back to themselves so that they can essentially manifest their dream lives. And that's another little side note there too. That's another rabbit hole that I've gone down through the years too, is like manifestation and laws of the universe. Oh my God, I'm so
Yeah. Like, tell
passionate.
me more, right? Like,
It's
tell me
so
more.
fun, right? And like if we want to manifest, we gotta love ourselves first.
Literally.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I find myself now. And that manifests as many different ways
Yeah.
of helping people. I've got a membership that is based on human design, self-love practices, breathwork, somatics, that kind of stuff. I do one-on-one coaching, I have courses, all the things, because I am continually getting inspired and excited to,
Share.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. So, on that, segueing, tell me about the human design. What is it? How is it beneficial? Let's start with the basis of, like, say nobody knows what human design is. What is human design and how is it beneficial?
Perfect. So human design, like, is kind of like one of those systems like astrology. And, it even does pull in aspects of astrology too. So human design is a system that helps us, like I was saying, come back to who we really are. I think we get really caught up in a lot of these systems like astrology, human design, gene keys, whatever it is,
Yeah.
in thinking that we have to like follow a certain set of rules and like be what human design tells us to be. But realistically, it's just a framework. I like to call it like your blueprint or your personalized guidebook to life that brings you back to what you already know, who you are, but we've just forgotten over the years because we're so deeply conditioned by the systems that we live in. So human design just tells you basically like who you are at a soul level, how you best operate in the world, how you best make decisions, what you're here to do. And once again, you already know these things, but you've just forgotten. So it's like, here's a little guidebook to help you remember. And it does pull in, like I was saying, aspects of astrology, but it also pulls in aspects of the chakra system, the Kabbalah, the Chinese I Ching, quantum physics, astrology. Like it has all of these elements, but it's still in itself is its own system. And there's so many layers and complexities and depth to it that you could learn about it forever and ever and ever and always keep learning new things about it. But there are basic elements that, I can teach anyone right off the bat. This is what I do with like human design readings. When I do one-off readings, we're learning like the basics of their chart so that they can go away and learn how they best make decisions in life, how they best tune into their intuition so that they can make the best decisions for themselves, and then how they are here to operate within society or within their relationships in the way that's going to feel the most fulfilling for them, and like put them on the path that they're here to be on, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So now you talked about like the lines. You have a one in your what are the lines? Like I think mine is a like 1-3.
that's what I am too. Of course.
It is. I'm like,
So that's your profile. Your profile consists of two lines or two numbers, and there's only six numbers, so it's going to be a combination of one of those six numbers. The first number in your profile is the conscious number. So this is just like a trait that you're more conscious of. Like you can see this quality in yourself. And the second number is in the unconscious placement. So maybe you don't quite see this in yourself as much. Maybe other people see it. And the more you step into who you really are and come back to yourself, the more that you will see those unconscious traits as well. And the profile essentially as a whole is, I kind of like to think of it as like the flavor you bring to how you operate in life. And so for myself, I'm a 1-3. If you're a 1-3-2, this will resonate with you. The line one, like I was mentioning before, is all, we call it the investigator. It's all about investigating and studying and learning and gathering information, especially when you're passionate about something. You might
yeah,
find that you just like totally dive
yeah,
in and
all
like
in. Yeah,
want to learn everything there is to know about it, and then share that too, right? And with everything in human design and in life, there is a higher expression and a lower or a shadow expression. And so for the profile lines, that also applies. And the shadow side of the line one would be thinking that you don't know enough.
know enough.
You never know enough to share, even though you have
That's
all this
yeah.
information,
I'm like,
probably
eh.
more than the other person knows, but you're not confident enough to share it.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a shadow, and I've definitely found myself there for sure.
yeah. Same. I'm like, e.
Right? And then the line three is the experimenter. So all about going through life through trial and error. Yeah, making perceived mistakes.
Failing.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of failures, what we perceive as failures.
Right.
Lots of experimenting, essentially. So you're trying all the different things so that you can actually figure out what works for you, what doesn't, and that's going to put you on the right path. And then, of course, the shadow of that would be thinking that you're making all these mistakes all the time and you suck and
Yeah.
you're comparing yourself to other people. But in reality, it's like if you can accept that part of yourself, you can see that there's so much wisdom in that because you are actually just honing it down to what you're here to do. And, you just have to go through this process and allow it to be a beautiful and expansive process for you. Yeah.
Expansive. I thought you said expensive. I was like,
Ah!
yes. And I'm like, yes,
Could be expensive too. That's your lesson.
it's your lesson. Yeah. Yeah. I that's something that I'm currently like I can attest to that. If there's anybody else that is this 1-3 thing, I can fully attest to that. Like I'm just now at the point of where I'm like, okay, I guess I'm making courses now. Like,
Right?
okay, I guess I'll publish this. It's a guidebook. I called it the New Earth Guidebook to Healing and Ascension. And it's just short, like it's like essentially your first day on the job and your boss hands you the handbook. This is what you need to know type thing. But for me to get to this point, like you said,
Right?
it was me like, I don't know if I have enough information and knowledge to just be doing this. And I don't know, maybe I should learn more or, have more expertise and
Yep.
knowledge. And it is
100%.
like it's a whole thing, and when I first found out about human design and I saw that and I was like, this is really a thing. Like this is something that I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And it just comes back to trusting ourselves in everything, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned also that it has bits of the astrology in it, like kind of like your birth chart.
Mm-hmm.
When you were describing what the one being kind of like your conscious and the three being like the subconscious, it's almost like the one, the conscious is like the rising, your right,
Mm-hmm.
your sun sign or your rising sign, and then your three being your subconscious being your descendant
Yeah.
sign.
Totally.
It's very interesting. I was like,
Yeah, so many parallels with that too, right?
yeah, yeah, like I'm very good at the birth chart, and that was the first thing that I noticed. I was like, so it's kind of like, so that's the outward, what you present outwardly, or in this one is like what other people see you as, but like you don't necessarily
Yeah.
see yourself that way.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I know. Hey, so
I'm
cool. I
like,
love it.
what? Okay, so tell me some other things about the human design and the best way that people can start to integrate human design into their life and use it to their benefit. Like, what would be some of the key things that you would say, hey, this is how it can enrich or benefit your life?
Totally. So, like I was saying, there's so much depth and complexity to it that even when you just look at your chart for the first time, you might be like, what the
What is
is
this?
this? It's so weird looking. And it can be overwhelming because there's all these symbols and numbers and words that mean nothing to you at this point. And so, this is why it's really important to start simple. Like with astrology, you're going to start with your sun sign, your rising, and your moon, right? That's how we kind of start with that. For human design, I would always say if you're going to just kind of research this on your own, get your chart. You can get it for free anywhere on the internet. And you need your birth information, including your birth time. If you don't know that, you can do that through muscle testing or using a pendulum or whatever. So that's your first step to get your chart. And then, most charts will give like a little bit of information with them. So you don't actually have to look at the body graph and try to decode that yourself because
Yeah.
you won't know how to do that. So you'll have your type, your strategy, and authority. And those are the three things that you're going to want to start with. Your type is going to be one of the 5 energy types. So that's manifestor, generator, manifesting generator, projector, or reflector. And learning about what that means and, that's the kind of like the energy that you bring to this incarnation. Within that too, you're going to have what's called your strategy. Every type has your strategy. Your strategy is kind of how you're meant to approach things. So for instance, myself as a projector strategy is to wait for an invitation. And so what that means is that instead of like a manifestor who is here to initiate and take action on things, it's much better for me as a projector if I actually wait for people or life to come to me and invite me into those things versus me just like going and giving
Facing
unsolicited
it.
advice or going and starting a project without, getting invited first. And I think people get really tripped up on the strategy, especially as a projector.
Right.
They're like, oh, I just sit around and wait for things. I have all these
Right. Like,
ideas, and like projectors are really good at guiding and giving advice and seeing things in ways that other types can. And so we're just like waiting to share this
yeah.
stuff. And it's like, we'll have to wait for an invitation. Like, no, that doesn't feel good. And I went through my whole life not knowing that. So I was giving advice left, right, and center because I get so passionate about things. And then I would feel like people weren't listening to me or people were ignoring me or people getting
Yeah.
upset with me or telling me I'm bossy. And I'm like, I'm just trying to share like my love of
Yeah.
stuff. So it's like the strategy and all the types have their own is like if you actually learn to embody this, you're like for projectors, like once I learned to wait for the invitation, I found that the right people who want to hear what
Right.
I have to say, who want to be guided by me, who are going to get the most benefit out of what I have to offer, will come to me, will be magnetic or will be magnetized to me, will be attracted to me and invite me to share that stuff. So that's the strategy piece. And like I said, all the types have their own strategy, but that's a really, really important piece because you might find that you've been doing it the opposite your whole life and that things haven't worked out.
That's great.
Has that been your experience with being a projector as well?
Yeah, well, I again, like I had kind of like an unconventional life in general. Like again, also kind of like you with the chronic illnesses type things. It was just a whole shit show of things, being resuscitated 7 times in life. So like literally, yeah. So literally, I spent most of my life within the spiritual warfare thing, literally up until this year. So like it's an interesting dynamic, kind of like being like a new baby fawn when it comes to real physical world stuff, but also being this very ancient being at the
Yeah.
same time.
Mm-hmm.
But the times that I wasn't, say, like dealing with a surgery or some sort of health situation, like there was times, again, I was doing my researching and stuff, and I was like, okay, great, like I'm gonna like share this and share the things that I know, and then it would come back in like a, because people weren't ready for it, so it came back. And then I have the witch wound, like I
Mm.
very much remember my past lives of being literally burned at the stake with my book. So me creating a book this lifetime is like literally,
Yeah, felt that.
literally. So, but for most of my life, the times that again I wasn't dealing with like a health thing, in between those moments, I was still learning, and I had all this stuff and all this like passion and gumption. And I was like, oh my God, like The Hobbit, I'm going on an adventure and I'm going to share all the things. But again, it was like being met with like a whole lot of we're not ready for this shit over here type stuff, and then I was like, oh my God. And I kind of just like went back into my little cave, and God source universe was like, so you gonna wait or you need to do this again?
Yeah, because we can let it like take over and make us think that we're not, people don't want to hear what we have to say and we're not
Exactly.
worthy and whatever it is, right? So that also,
Yeah.
yeah, another big part of human design is the deconditioning aspect, because
Yeah.
you have to decondition yourself from all of the things that you're not in order to fully embody your human design or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
again, I'm glad you mentioned that because like honestly that was a component of it. And again, me just now learning, I mean, I would say I'm 2 months into the human design thing, so but prior to me knowing that human design was a thing, I was like, I felt like I was just having this, obviously the word now is deconditioning, but like at the time I didn't know what the hell was happening. But it felt like everything that I thought I knew, kind of like what you said with the going through COVID, like everything a lie. But this time it was about me personally, and I was like, oh my God, this is not me. But then an added layer to that was that I was on so much pharmaceutical medication, so much, from literally, I just talked another like super wound here, since we're talking about the thing,
Yeah, yeah.
another super wound here. Like I just got done telling the psychiatrist that had me on all the medicine since I was 5 years old that I had stopped taking the like antidepressant medications that he had me on since 5 years old.
Wow.
And he was like, how did you get off it? That was his first question. How did you get off it? I listened to God Source Universe last year
Yeah.
when they told me it's time to get off. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And so literally it's like trying to rediscover who I really am, like coming back into the homeostasis of like, this is me,
Mhm.
but even while off of everything, I still was like trying to figure out what was this other thing that I was being all this entire time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that deconditioning is absolutely a huge part that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, and it should be discussed more because it's a huge component of it. Like you can't get here until you go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like a big part of my work with human design too, is because so many people come to me and, whether they get a reading or they're just curious about human design, they're like, what am I here to do? What am I here to do? What's my soul's path? Yeah, human design can tell you what that is, but it's all just information until you actually are able to start embodying it. And you're not going to be able to embody it if you still have the same belief systems that created this forgetting of who you actually are. So the actual work comes in with coming back to yourself, and then you can start embodying the things that you're learning about your astrology, about your human design, whatever it is. But you know what, those things will just come naturally to you once you start deconditioning, because they're already a part of you, right? It's like, okay, here's the nice little handy guidebook to just be like, yeah, okay, right, yeah, I'm on the right track, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it is, but do you feel like the deconditioning part, this that you've just mentioned, is also a part of kind of just doing the shadow work, you know,
It's all yes,
all
absolutely.
a part of it?
Yeah,
Like you're like, yes, and yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Personally, please
definitely.
tell me how you think that all ties in with it. Because again, also something that I'm really tired of happening, but it's like spreading like a plague out here. And I feel like now in every podcast I have to say this, you can't skip the shadow work. but it seems like
No.
there's a horde of, of of people within the spiritual community that want to just be like, come to me and I'll fix everything about you. And like,
Yeah, I think that in itself is dangerous because if you are looking for answers externally or outside of yourself, you're on the wrong path to begin with, right? Everything that you need to heal, to come back to yourself, to thrive, to manifest your desires, it's already within you. And it's so cool that we have teachers and mentors and things like that that can help us come
right,
back to ourselves, but no one is going to fix you. You're
right,
the only person that can do that. And yes, it does require you doing the quote unquote shadow work, however you want to look at that, because those are the parts of you that need to heal, but they also need to be seen and felt and loved. I'll go as far as saying they need to be loved, even those parts that we like hate or judge or criticize or whatever. Like those are the parts, the reason why they keep coming up is because you're ignoring them and
ignoring.
you're judging them and you're afraid of them. And it's like, if you can love and accept that that's also a part of who you are, then you're going to have a much easier time rather
Yeah,
than just resisting, 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 resisting.
yeah, and also I said recently, I think it was either in a blog post or I think I also put it in the book of talking about doing the shadow work is kind of like opening up the Pandora's box and the first layer of the Pandora's box is like all the things that you didn't want to look at, like all the scary things, all the ghoulies and the goblins. It's like all
Yes.
there on the top layer. But also, like once you get through all the crappy stuff, like it's like you start discovering parts of yourself like, hey, I didn't know that was there.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I didn't know I had this. You know, you
Uh-huh.
start finding all the gifts and gems also within it. So it's like it's not all bad, but like you just have to deal with the top layer of crap first,
Mm-hmm. And
you know?
you can't have the light without the dark. It,
Hmm.
we can't, that's the world of duality and polarity and that we find ourselves in is exists within all of us as well, right? Like we're going to have the
Exactly.
shadows, we're going to have the light, and that is also what helps us have so much more gratitude for the light, the joy, the
Right.
bliss, whatever. And so
Right.
it's having that contrast that is also really important. But yeah, it's the shadows or however you want to view them, that's where there's so much wisdom, there's so much value in there, there's
Yeah.
so many lessons that you wouldn't learn otherwise,
Yeah.
right? Because if you didn't have the traumas, the hard stuff, the wounds, whatever it is, you wouldn't learn the lessons that your soul came here to learn, to evolve in the ways that you're.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's all part of it. And also kind of going back to what you said about you can't have the light without the dark. Literally you can't have that. And I know there's also a lot of people, I feel like I'm just myth busting a lot of time frequently, because I'm like, this is just getting out of control. Where a lot of people are like, I'm only always happy and I'm only always love and light. And I'm like,
You're lying to yourself.
yeah, these are lies, lies. You can't. Like you can't. Even the most purest of beings, like at some point in time, you're gonna want to sock somebody out. That's a thought. Like that's like that's a part of you don't stay with it and you don't let the anger sit with you and consume you. But like if you are trying to tell people that like, oh, you don't feel any negative emotions ever, I
Hmm.
just feel like it's a red flag.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not true.
It's red. It's red flag.
Yeah. You're just lying to yourself. Then you're not
Yeah,
actually doing the work. Not actually
yeah,
doing the work. Yeah.
yeah. And it's a whole lot of this out here where it's like, it's just only we're only light.
It's spiritual bypassing. Yeah. No.
Wait, what'd you call it?
Spiritual bypassing. Yes.
Elaborate on this
It's
definition.
exactly that. It's exactly that. It's like not actually doing the work because you like feel like you're on this spiritual path where you're holier than thou and you're like better than this person because I'm all light and I'm not negative. It's like, well, no, that's not actually what being spiritual is about. That's not actually what doing the work is. Doing the work is going through that difficult, uncomfortable stuff. That's where you get that's where the meat and potatoes are.
Yes, I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's also I feel like there's also this thing of a lot of the what you call the spiritual bypassing is where a lot of people are just like really high.
Mm-hmm.
like all the time. Like, I mean, just all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that,
And we forget that we're humans on the planet. Like we gotta be both. We're
do you
also
know, do you know what I'm saying? But like again, I feel like weed is a very healing thing, but like if all the time, especially if you're just starting out on the spiritual path, if only all the time all that you're doing is using whatever to stay high and connected,
yeah.
we got a problem.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
you have to sit like soberly in the thick of your shit and deal with it and unpack it and feel it, because otherwise, I say this all the time with my brand of evolve or repeat, otherwise you're going to continuously just repeat and stay in that suffering via like different people, places, things, or situations that are going to continuously arouse this emotion or feeling that you're trying to evade.
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
it's a real thing. I can say it because I did it. Like
Yep.
I did both ways. Like
Yep.
I was like drunk and high all the time for like a good year and a half of my life. I tried it.
Mm-hmm.
Trial and error.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I've been there too.
So I'm not over here like casting the stone as if like I'm not, but I'm just telling you what works and what doesn't work. Like I know out of experience, this ain't it. And you can't only get so far on that path.
Yeah.
And it's like a false connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's
I
it's a it's a false connection when you're just using anything to like
to escape.
write and then be like this is how I'm getting all my channeling and your information.
Mm,
Yes, it like weed can keep you connected and but it should be like a
a stepping stone.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
not the
Yeah. And I
what
think
am I trying to say here?
that, I mean, I totally get it. It goes for all plant medicine, I think. Like they can be really beautiful tools, especially for those of us who have a really hard time accessing those deeper states of consciousness or higher states of consciousness, because that doesn't, it's not as easy. I don't know if that's the right word for some people to reach that. Some people that just comes very naturally. They can just drop in, no problem. They don't even have to ever try plant medicines. And then some of us, that is our path. And that whatever, whether it's weed or ayahuasca or whatever,
Right,
that can help us access those parts of ourselves and be like, okay, this does exist for me.
exist,
And like,
right,
yes, plant medicine is a very like potent way to access that, but also remembering, it's like that deconditioning, that remembering that, okay, I can actually access these states without substances,
right,
and that is truly like how we're supposed to do it. And it's just like, okay, we have these tools to help us like stepping stones, like we were saying,
right.
but they can be abused, of course, and then you're just relying on them, right?
that
Yeah.
that and I it also sucks 10 times more because again, trial and error. It also sucks 10 times more like when you have just been on these things and you come off by whatever means, you come off and then you realize that your entire all the things that you tried to evade are still there. Not only that, but like you're sitting in the thick of like your dark night of the soul and full awakening. Now you've got like 1,000 things that you've got to deal with at once, and it's again, I don't recommend it. I did it and it was an awful process for me. And I was like, oh my God, this was a really bad choice. This was a bad decision. But I've noticed that there's a lot of I think it's almost like a lot of people feeling like they're late.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm segueing into my next point here, but the
Trusting their path and trusting their process.
right, but then like realizing shit, like the world is changing and like the train's running off without them, and so they're like trying to catch up on like all the lessons that a lot of us already went through like a
Yeah.
long time ago,
Yeah.
and trying to like take the fast track path to it, but like is I feel like it's a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's this us coming into the age of Aquarius, this whole new age of Aquarius thing. I just feel like a lot of people feel it. at a soul in spiritual level as and it's like, oh my God, I gotta catch up type of
Right.
feeling.
Yeah.
I can
Things are changing
that
fast.
that. Tell me what your thoughts are about this.
Mm. I get it because I've also found myself feeling like that. And even still, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not where I want to be yet. And it's like, okay, my soul chose this path, these processes, because I'm going to learn the lessons along this way. So I think we can get really caught up in not trusting that. I think that it's always going to come back to, can you trust yourself? Can you trust your path? Can you trust your intuition? Can you trust the universe, source, God, whatever? Because we're all meant to go at this and get to wherever it is we're supposed to be in our own
Right.
time and our own way. And if we're constantly comparing ourselves to how other people are getting there, then we're going to keep finding ourselves in the same cycle, because it's that comparison in itself that's like, here's your little lesson. Like, where are you not trusting yourself? Where are you
Yes.
like looking externally to, get your validation or to do things? So I think that's a big part of it too, is people just not trusting.
Yeah.
Once again, I totally get it.
Yeah. I'm like,
Big,
same. Like, I
right?
understand
You
because
know, yes. And yes, the world is changing very fast, and it can be overwhelming. And so I think there's this like desperation around it with people,
that's what it feels like. That's what it
right?
is. I was like, that's what, yes,
Feels like an urgency, like it's going so fast, I need to change now or I'm going to be left behind.
that.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, things are really shifting, but it's still the people that are meant, the souls that are meant to ride along on this way with the shift. It's going to happen, and just, let it happen in its own way. It doesn't mean that you just sit back and just do nothing. Like, you still got to take action. There's a trusting,
I'm just here.
twiddling our thumbs. There's the trusting, but then you still got to take action, but it's got to be the aligned action. Otherwise, you're going to keep ending up in the same cycles and the same patterns, right? So you're not learning the lessons if you're not actually taking the aligned actions. And you only figure that out is if you do the inner work. And so it's like, once again, people see this thing happening externally in the world and things are shifting and everyone else is, whatever,
Right.
thinking that everyone has their shit together. But in reality, we're all like still figuring it out, right?
Meanwhile, I'm over here like, I don't know if I have enough information to be doing.
Totally. 100%. 100%. Yes, yes. And like, yeah, some people are meant to stay in the old paradigm.
No, let's talk
And that's
about that.
okay
No,
too. We
let's talk
need
about that.
we need
Yeah.
that balance. That's the duality. We need
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you mentioned us going into the Age of Aquarius, and human design also has this, like, a viewpoint of this, and it's just, yeah, yeah. So we're moving into in 2027 is when we're moving into this new paradigm. It's called, so everyone in their chart has what's called their incarnation cross, and it's like your,
Yeah.
yeah, your life's path, your soul's purpose. But as a collective, we also are moving through incarnation crosses as like a collective, and they last like a long time. Like, we've been in one for like a couple hundred years. I don't know the exact number. And now in 2027 we're transitioning into this new paradigm, this new incarnation cross. The cross of the sleeping phoenix is what it's called. The names are so funny because I'm like, what does
Yeah.
that
What?
actually
Huh.
translate to?
Yeah.
But essentially, the old incarnation cross variant was all about systems and like authority, and like very much like um, yeah, having systems in place and rules and that kind of structure, lots of structure, which is very much, what our society is. And as we go into this new paradigm into 2027, it's all about those structures like crumbling. And now it's all about like everyone not fending for themselves, but kind of, it's coming back to yourself, and like you're your authority, and
Right.
you're your guide, and like we're not relying on those old systems and structures because they're falling apart, they're not working anymore. And so it's more about like everyone for themselves, but also like coming into this new sense of what community is versus what it was before. So that's kind of the transition through human design, kind of the same vibes as we go into the Age of Aquarius as well. So
How do you feel like it's different from the Age of Aquarius, like astrologically Age of Aquarius version?
yeah, I don't know that. I mean, I think there's nuances to both of them. I think they still have a lot of the same kinds of flavors and stuff. Because, that the Age of Aquarius is very much about that as well too. It's like being your own authority and like rebelling and, systems crumbling and stuff. So it's very much the same vibe. And like I said, human design does pull in aspects of astrology. So they're all intricately connected as well. They're not like separate,
Right.
but just different lingo and kind of that kind of things.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I've seen a couple of different things, and you also mentioned the that there's like aspects of the I Ching in it. And I saw an I Ching reading recently that was kind of based off of almost exactly what you said verbatim for the year of 2025. I think they said it was like mid 2025 of it being kind of like the catapulting of the change, and then more and more in 2026 like the changes are starting to set in, and by 2027 it's like solidified, like it's just like it's all just kind of you know
Yeah. Yeah.
and I've been giving the example of the Flintstones versus Jetsons. Have you heard this theory? Have I said this to you before or no?
I don't know. You'll have to.
Okay, so like I say the Flintstones and the Jetsons theory of both the Flintstones and the Jetsons existed at the exact same time on planet Earth, except the Flintstones went through some shit that set them back to the Stone Age.
Mm-hmm.
Like some apocalyptical situation occurred and it set them back to their Stone Age because like they didn't prepare. But like the ones that were prepared lived above in the sky, and those were the Jetsons. And so like I put it in the spiritual terms of like it's like the ones that chose to not ascend were the Flintstones, and the ones that did choose to ascend were the Jetsons. And like same planet, same time,
Yeah.
but different experiences and existences.
Yeah.
Existence.
That's great. I love that. That's so good. That's such a great way of explaining it.
Yeah, but also if you ever go back, and even now, like I saw it the other day and I took a picture of it because I was like, no effing way is this happening. And I just talked about this on Instagram of the Flintstones and Jetsons theory. Literally on my guide, like I use Philo. I don't know if you heard of that app. It's like the live TV thing because I have a Kindle Fire Stick.
Cool. Yep.
So I have Philo, and on the guide for like the channels, literally like I was scrolling through trying to get back to, I think it was MTV or something. I don't remember what it was. But on the guide it was the Flintstones, and right next to it was the Jetsons. Literally like side by side, and I was like, "What's happening?"
Yes.
Yeah, I was like,
I love that. So,
but yeah, it's very much this kind of a thing, this kind of a vibe. You know what I mean?
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's a rabbit hole for you.
So many rabbit holes. Oh my gosh, so many. Taking a break on rabbit holes for the meantime. It's not true. I don't think I'll ever stop rabbit holing.
Yeah, I like how you immediately were like, "That's a lie." Just kidding, though.
Because I like fully thought, I'm like, yeah, I've taken a break. And I'm like, wait, no, I'm fully like immersed in this thing right now. And it's just like, didn't call it a rabbit hole. It's the same thing though.
It's the same thing. Okay, so tell me, what are some closing topics or thoughts that you have? And then also, I always ask, what are the things that you want to promote, or what are some things that you have coming out, and all your socials and website, and how can people get in touch with you? All the things.
All the things. I think I'll leave it with just kind of what I have been really immersed in as of late, and it's the trusting the process and allowing ourselves to be in different seasons, and understanding that it doesn't have to look a certain way. We don't have to have it all figured out, and that it is part of the process. Whatever it is you're going through right now, trusting that that is part of your path, and that's what's going to lead you to learning the things that you need to learn to get to where you want to go. Even if it feels hard, that's the point. Like nothing, your soul's path, is always going to be the quote unquote harder route, because
Yeah.
that's where you're going to learn the most, versus
Right.
if you took the easy route of just doing it the way that everyone thinks you should do it, are you, is that really going to lead you to where you want to go? So trusting in the process. And that's a big one for me right now. So I'm sure other people can relate. So
Trust, I said yesterday, I made a video because God Source Universe asked me what my why was. Why are you doing this, V? And of course, my smart ass was like, because you told me to. But really, yeah, but really. But in this video that I made, I said, trusting the process, even when you can't see the progress. Like that.
100%. Yeah. Love that.
I love that you said trusting the process. And this was something that I just said yesterday, like the alignment.
Of course.
Yeah,
Always.
the alignment.
All of the synchronicities. My favorite thing in life is synchronicities.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's that. And then gosh, I feel like I'm working on so many things right now. So like I was saying before, I have a membership. Right now, it's a human design membership, but I'm currently revamping it. So going into the new year, it's going to look a little bit different still with human design, but I'm kind of revamping it into more of like a self-love kind of membership. So all of the tools to help you cultivate more self-love, because like I was saying, that is the foundational piece that so many of us are missing. And then of course, pulling in aspects of human design as well as the other types of work that I do. And so I love the little community that we have in there. And I'm just so excited to continue growing that. But I wanted to extend it further than just human design, because I know that a lot of people are like, what the heck is human design? I'm not going to join a membership just on human design. So it's like, okay, more all encompassing. It's going to be more about that foundational self love. And then we use human design as well. So that is always available. But like I said, revamping that. So I'll be doing some promoing around that soon. I've also got a program coming out in the new year. I've teamed up with one of my friends and kind of like someone I do a lot of projects with. So she also has a background in holistic health. She's a personal trainer, yoga instructor, she does nutrition, and we're both on our spiritual paths. So we have created an all-encompassing holistic health program, 8 weeks long. We start mid-January. It's going to have aspects of nutrition, fitness, but it's for women. And so we're teaching women how to bring their cycles into more of their lives, whether that is nutrition for their cycle, for different aspects of where they're at in their cycle, fitness, because that is something that we've been trained like work out really hard every single day, all day. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
If you're like in your late luteal, don't do that. You're gonna just mess up with mess your hormones. You're gonna gain weight. So teaching women how to actually work with their cycle versus against it, when to rest, how to exercise, using the food with that as well. And then also work and social life. So if you have a business, like operating your business in accordance with your cycle, that has been a game changer for me. Like I love that. And it's been so helpful. So teaching women to align their lives with their cycles and then bringing in the spiritual aspect of that as well. So we have every week we've got live workshops for Q&A, but also like we'll do breathwork sessions, we'll do yoga, we'll do like educational stuff, we'll bring some human design in there. So it's very all encompassing for women holistic health program. And so that's starting mid-January. And then I always do human design readings. I do them one-on-one. I do them for families. I do them for couples. There's so many ways that you can do that. That would be like a really perfect way for anyone who is curious about their human design and just wanting to learn, like I said, about the basics, their strategy, their type, strategy, authority. And then if they have any questions, like what's my soul's path? Like what, all those kinds of things. Every time I do a reading, it just lights me up because everyone I do reading for, they're just like, oh my God, like I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel understood. That's why I did this.
Right. Oh,
It's just
yeah.
so validating. And
Yeah.
also I give some tools that they can start implementing right away. And it's always it's so cool to see how mind blown people are. They're like, how do
Yeah.
you know me like
You're
this?
like, what?
Yeah.
How do you
So,
know?
exactly. So human design readings, those are always fun. I always will offer those. And then, like I was saying, I do coaching as well. I have, shorter and longer term coaching containers where we do all of the things, human design, somatics, self-love, self-acceptance, mindset coaching. I love, like I was saying, meditation. And so reprogramming the brain and deconditioning is totally my jam. So that's a massive part of working with me as well. And I think I have some courses that are always available too, self-love courses, human design courses, lots of fun things that are always available. But those are my main things right now. And yeah, always love to have newbies come in and explore this world.
Okay, and then how do people get in touch with you, or how do they find your stuff?
Yes. So my website's wholeharmony.ca. That's my business is Whole Harmony Wellness. So wholeharmony.ca, because I'm in Canada, and Instagram is like the main social platform that I use. So at Whole Harmony Wellness, all one word. My email is Rajen at wholeharmony.ca, Rejan at wholeharmony.ca. Those are the main ways you can get in touch with me. Like I said, my main social platform is Instagram. So I've got all my stuff in there. All my offerings are on there as well as on my website. And yeah, I think that covers it.
Thank you so much for being here and giving us all the information and all the rundowns and helping us understand what human design is and tap into it and all the things. This has been amazing. And again, I was like, oh, we twinning.
Oh yeah,
Wait, what sign are you?
Aquarius.
Aquarius. Of course, I'm like, you're with all the stuff. I'm like, yes, I'm like, you're into all the stuff. I feel like Aquarius is an I, I'm a Virgo, but Aquarius is an I. We mesh very well because y'all are up to go down the rabbit holes with me. Like
Hey,
nothing is too weird for you.
no, not at all. I'm such a weirdo.
I'm
What?
so weird, literally. I love it. Thank you so much. Yes, and I'm serious. You have to come back on and go down another rabbit hole with me on some things.
Absolutely. Yes, let's do it.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna hit stop, but please stay on to make sure your thing loaded.
Yep.
Okay.
Beautiful.
See ya.
Bye.